Hello and welcome back to the Chargers Check-In. My name is Cecilia. Today I'm going to talk to you about the top centers of the 2026 NFL Draft. So this is something I've been really excited about. I know some of you are excited about it too. If you're here as a Chargers fan, I am going to talk about what the Chargers specifically are looking for, but I'm also talking about this class broadly. So whether you're a Chargers fan or not, I hope there's something you can take away. So the Chargers' needs this offseason include a starting center. So we are primarily going to be talking about starting guys. I do have one depth piece to look at, but hopefully the idea is to get a starting center. They potentially need a starting guard. I think they do. They need depth at the guard position. They need a swing tackle, depending on what they want to do with Trey Pipkins. Personally, I don't think that they're going to re-sign him. I don't think they should. Outside of the offensive line, depending on which of the many free agents that they choose to re-sign or not, there are 24 of those, and depending on who they're able to get before the draft, the Chargers likely need defensive line, both interior and defensive end, linebacker, maybe a blocking tight end, and they definitely need bodies on special teams. They need guys who can tackle, guys who can block. One could make an argument that they need a returner, but I don't think that's a priority. So the Chargers have a lot of needs and they don't have a lot of draft picks. So a lot of this has to be taken care of in free agency. The Chargers are likely to trade out of a couple spots in order to get more picks. In terms of what the Chargers want in the offensive line specifically, the Chargers haven't proven that they can really improve offensive linemen the way that they can really improve corners and safeties and arguably defensive ends. So to me, that kind of says you really need to get one of the better players at this position. We can't necessarily trust the development. I mean, we'll see if Branson Taylor turns into anything, but I think the Chargers have to use a higher draft pick unless somehow, they go and sign a veteran starting center and a veteran starting guard. That are big improvements, and then you can afford to take more of a depth piece. There are maybe 5 interior offensive linemen in the top 100. There's an argument for 7. Obviously, there's still time for that to change. Some are going to perform well in the playoffs, some aren't. We'll see where that leaves things, but I definitely see a world where a lot more interior offensive linemen than that are selected in the top 100. This is a position that when good players start to go, teams get a little desperate. There can be a run on it. And, hopefully there are enough exciting players at premium positions that it pulls the attention away from these classes at guard and center. But yeah, if the Chargers want a top guard, it's possible that means they have to kind of overdraft someone. It's not ideal to be in that position. So hopefully in free agency, they'll do what they can to mitigate that. But you could look at it as if the Chargers pick a guard, if the Chargers pick a center in round 1, depending on who it is, you might just look at it as, they're overdrafting someone because the talent of the board kind of fell off and no one was willing to trade up for that spot. That being said, there are absolutely players that are very exciting, both in the guard and center position. I'm just going over centers today, but I will go over guards another time. Let's talk about how we evaluate prospects. So the first thing you look at are traits. You look at height, weight, arm length, strength. A lot of these players, you can find out their bench and their squat and stuff like that. And, a lot of that's going to come out at the combine, which is why this is not a ranking video. This is just, here are the 5 players that I'm most interested in. You want to see how they play in big games. Do they play their best when their best is needed? What does it mean when they go against the best players, in the trenches? If you're playing a top SEC team, even if that team is struggling, even if, maybe that team was top last year and they're not as good this year, they're still going to have big, strong, fast guys up front. And that's going to be a good opportunity to see how players handle, different types of pass rush. Can they be a mover in the run game against bigger bodies? The next thing you look for is improvement every year. You want to see improvement in technique, in fundamentals. You want to see improvement in strength, athleticism, maybe some body recomposition, and you want to see an improvement on their role of the team. Maybe that means their production goes up. Maybe that means they go from just being a player to being a captain. Maybe that means that you see their coach start to shout them out in interviews and stuff. Luckily, in college, the post-game press conferences are really long. In the NFL, it's like, here's 8 minutes of Jim Harbaugh. And in college, it's like, here's 30 minutes of Ryan Day. So we do get a lot of details on these players, which is really nice. Maybe they go from being a rotational piece to a starter. Maybe you see the coaches start to build their offense around them, build their defense around them. Maybe they go from playing special teams to not playing special teams because now they're seen as, a more valuable player than that, depending on a coach's philosophy. The last thing that I'm looking for is character. Obviously, the older a player is, the higher expectations you have for character and the higher expectations you have for fundamentals. The older somebody is, the better their traits need to be, because you get a sense of, well, if you're 25, if you're 24, you probably already have that grown-up strength that you might get. You're not likely to suddenly put on a bunch of weight. You can still recomposite a bit, but younger prospects are definitely gonna get a longer leash on this stuff. Character, obviously, you don't want to draft a guy who is unlikely to take his job as a football player seriously. You don't want to draft a guy who's a problem in a locker room. You don't want to draft someone who, for example, abuses women. I wish the NFL or just teams individually would take that more seriously. Really weird that they don't. But I know the Chargers care a lot about character because they care a lot about locker room. That doesn't mean that they can't deal with some things. It seems like the character problems that the Chargers are willing to deal with are the problems that are like, they get too many personal foul calls. They're getting in fights, that kind of thing. That they're okay with the fieriness, look at T.R. Tart, right? But they're not going to be okay with someone who doesn't really love football. So that's definitely something I factored in. All right, some notes on centers in particular. Centers are rarely drafted high in the first round, but center prospects may be drafted to play guard, so there is going to be a little more competition for them. Not all of them can be versatile like that. There are likely to be good prospects available in the fourth round, potentially later. So, if it's draft weekend and the Chargers don't pick the first center off the board, they don't pick the second center off the board, don't think that there aren't still really good players out there. There absolutely are. This is not a pick that has to be forced early. It would be a great thing if they were able to get a guy they really believe in early. I don't think you're going to see Joe Ortiz reach more than a few spots on his draft board. That's not something he's comfortable with. In 2024, the first center drafted was 26 overall in the first round. 2023, in the second round, it picked 43. 2022, it was 25th overall. So usually there is a guy who makes it to the first round and not beyond that. So it's very possible that even if the guy we want is there in the first round, the Chargers feel like they need to go with an edge rusher or someone else. If they do take a center in the first round, just know that means they absolutely love the guy, or everyone else they love is off the board and it fell pretty horribly. That remains to be seen. A lot will change between now and the draft. But for the center position, the Chargers are going to value football IQ. They're going to value leadership. They want someone who can develop into a player who calls protections, who takes as much off of the plate of Justin Herbert as possible. That's something we know is true, that we know that was one of the reasons they like Bradley Bozeman, and unfortunately is one of the reasons Bradley Bozeman has struggled. He has not been great in that department. So let's take a look at the prospect I know you guys are most excited about, which is Connor Lew from Auburn. He's number 75, 6'3", 300 pounds. He did tear his ACL earlier this year, and because of that, there's been some speculation that he's not going to declare for the draft this year. I think he will. He doesn't have to. He is still likely the most desirable prospect. ACL reconstruction surgeries have improved a lot. They don't mean what they did 10 years ago. Unfortunately for me, who, had an ACL replacement surgery. So Connor Lew, he was a starter as a freshman. That's very uncommon in the SEC. 3 years of tape on a player as a starter, that doesn't lie. You can learn a lot from him. That's one of the reasons I think he is such a popular prospect. The players around him are very inconsistent, especially, looking at this year and last year. He emerged as a leader of the offensive line very early on. He has a high level IQ for picking up stunts, games, calling protections. I think we saw the biggest leap in improvement going from his freshman year to his sophomore year. He benefited a lot from Auburn's strength program. He looks like a completely different man. This guy never seems to lose a rep. Like, watching his tape is it's like watching the same thing over and over again. Like, when is it gonna skew against him? When is he gonna have to reset his feet? And the answer is rarely, because he's so good from the jump. He is rarely movable one-on-one in pass protection. He moves people with force in the run game, and he is excellent at steering people out of run lanes for a ridiculous amount of time, like through the whistle. He is the guy blocking someone out of the back of the end zone. It's very fun to watch. Not every center's tape is fun to watch, but this guy's absolutely is. He's mobile, he's smart. I think he could work with any scheme, and I think that's important for the Chargers, who have proven that, even though they got Bradley Bozeman with one scheme in mind, they were willing to adapt that based on the other personnel around him. Watching his tape, I watched him after I watched everyone else, because I was like, well, the Chargers probably aren't going to be in position to get him. He tore his ACL, he might not even declare, and then the buzz just didn't die down. And so when I watched him, I had already watched everyone else. This guy plays faster than everyone else on this list. He does. He moves so well in the run game. They use him a lot with more advanced run concepts. They clearly trust him a lot at Auburn, and I think that's worth something. He's not a perfect prospect. Like I said, tore his ACL. That, begs the question, how athletic will he be when he returns? He has a bit of a smaller frame. He gets beat by those bigger nose tackles, although he'll certainly get bigger before his rookie year, no doubt about that. His sacks that he allowed at Texas A&M were really ugly, just beat off of the jump and not able to recover at all. It's not too much of a concern, but don't think he's like a perfect prospect. He's a pure center, not much versatility. This isn't someone you draft like, well, we'll just see what the hole is on the interior and, we'll see what we can get after the draft and free agency. And no, this guy is a center, but don't overthink it. If the Chargers take this guy in the first round, say they're picking at 21, if they take him there, that's fine. They will be getting a great player, and if they play their cards right, if they're able to develop him, he will absolutely turn into a high-end starter. There is more excitement about him than there was about anyone in last year's class. I don't think the Chargers can afford to wait, and I would not blame them if the Chargers just picked him in the first round. So that's probably your guys' favorite. I want to talk about my favorite player, and that's Iapani Laloulu. He goes by Poncho, and he is the center at Oregon. He's 6'2", 328 pounds, a team captain, and he had a really interesting discussion about how he improved from 2024 to 2025. Here he is talking about the changes he made.
I feel like I've gotten better at leadership, honestly, and like you said, box identification, being confident in the playbook, being able to understand, when we get in this type of certain situation, like what are we going to check into, and just being able to have that conversation, like with some of the skills and trying to learn the routes, being able to understand, what their job is, because at the end of the day, I want to make sure everybody's doing their job, and I want to know their job as well.
So yeah, I'm a big fan of this guy. His stock is definitely rising a lot this year, even as Oregon struggles in general, even as the line struggles. He's definitely someone who has improved every single year, and he's a real student of the game. You can hear that in all of his discussions about, what the offensive line can do better. You can tell he is always trying to make sure that he is on top of understanding what's going on. He rarely gets fooled by anything. He's a vocal leader. He very much is, when you think of a vocal leader who's going to push his teammates, this is the guy. And, that's one of the reasons I'm such a big fan of him for the Chargers, because they don't really have any strong vocal leaders on the offensive line. Rashawn Slater is definitely important in that department, but I think they need another body. I think they need another voice, and I think they need someone who's kind of going to be the counter of Justin Herbert's personality, where Justin Herbert's not going to call anyone out, but he will, he'll lead by example, take hit after hit, and if something is important, he'll say it and everyone will listen. But if you could also have that everyday leader, that Khalil Mack kind of guy on the opposite side of the trenches, I think that'd be really important, and I think Poncho can do it. He completely changed the Oregon offense when he moved to center in 2024. His protection calls and his comfort, his intelligence really stood out to the coaching staff. Their offensive line is awesome now. I mean, they haven't been perfect this year, but they are significantly better than they've been in the past. And Oregon's kind of turning into Trenches University. I'm not saying they're Notre Dame, but they, on both sides of the ball, they are awesome. And I would not be surprised if the Chargers end up with multiple guys from Oregon coming out of next year's draft. In 2025, he's allowed 1 sack all season, which is pretty awesome. The rest of the line combined, I think, has allowed 11 sacks, so he's definitely head and shoulders better than his teammates, even though his teammates are really solid players. In 2024, he completely shut down both Ohio State and Michigan. Their interior pass rushers are, at top level, Big Ten, huge guys, and he was able to shut them down. his hand technique is incredible. The timing of his punches, it's so refined, it's so smart. This is, I have no doubt, such a coachable young player, and he is rarely fooled by stunts. He's rarely fooled by games, and Chargers fans know how important that is when we watch, Bradley Bozeman and Zion and now Becton, all missing their marks on these things. So he also, I think, because he's a bigger guy, has the versatility to play guard. I think he's smart enough that if they wanted, he could make that change depending on what their roster looks like at that point. I think he offers flexibility, and I think the Chargers value that. Some of his weaknesses, he struggles to move people in the short yardage run game. He has a shorter wingspan, probably average level of athleticism, and he's not amazing at run blocking on the second level specifically. He's trending better as the season goes on. Right now, it looks like he's likely a late second round pick or early third round pick, but that absolutely could change because the playoffs are coming up. One of the reasons I wanted to go over this right now as opposed to at the end of the college season is I know some of you might want to watch these games live and see it for yourself. And with Oregon, I think this is a great week to watch Oregon. They're going up against USC. USC is coming to Eugene. It's a ranked matchup. It has huge implications for both teams for the playoffs, so it's going to be a tough matchup that I'm definitely encouraging you guys to watch. It's not just Poncho you should watch, also their guard, Emmanuel Pregnant. He's excellent as well. I'm definitely going to talk about him in the guard video, so go watch that Oregon line. There's awesome stuff happening, and if you do that, also watch their defensive line. I'm a big fan of Bear Alexander, big fan of Amari Washington, so a lot to watch out of Oregon. Next up, we have Jake Slaughter out of Florida. He's jersey number 66. He's 6'4", 303 pounds, a red shirt senior. 5th year at Florida, this guy has to declare, and can I just say his name is incredible? We talk about the tip of the spear and offensive linemen are weapons. Jake Slaughter, yeah, that's a weapon. Yeah, that name alone should get him into the second round, right? Jake Slaughter, are you kidding me? This guy, he's really impressive at the podium. He comes across as mature. That could just be because he looks like he's a 40-year-old accountant, and also it's 2005. I don't know. He's a very confident speaker. Clearly a leader on that team. He does a great job creating running lanes in one-on-one matchups, pushes defensive tackles back consistently, even the bigger guys, versatile in zone and gap run schemes. I think that's important. Excellent leverage, consistently lower on the pads than his opponents. Pass block success has steadily improved since becoming a starter in 2023, averaging 1 sack allowed per season. In the SEC, that's really impressive. They're in a lesser conference, you'd go, okay, but the SEC has some serious defensive fronts he's going up against. Great at diagnosing blitzes, always has a head on a swivel to help with blocks. He often covers for the mistakes of his teammates. He's just another really smart center prospect. Great lateral movements for counters, for traps, could be a big part of the Chargers offense with a better interior. I loved his work in pass protection against Ole Miss. I think if you're going to watch one game from him, watch that one. He just refused to get pushed back at all. The defense could not make a new line of scrimmage against him. Sometimes he can be a little over-aggressive against stunts that can cause him to be off balance. But I think this guy could be a starter in year one. He would need to add some mass, some leg strength to the lower half. But I think this is someone who might be available at the right time for good value for the Chargers. If he's there in the second round, I think that would be excellent value. Some people put him ahead of Connor Lew since Connor Lew's injury. I personally don't. But I still think that this guy, I think he would fit in really well with the culture, personality-wise. And I think he's a great player. I think he's going to be a solid NFL player, a lot of upside. And we'll see how he is coming out of the combine. Right now he's getting a lot of buzz, a lot of attention. Moving on to the Iowa center, Logan Jones, number 65. He's 6'3", 302 pounds. He's an older prospect at 24 years old. He started out actually as a defensive tackle, and he switched to center at his coach's request after Tyler Linderbaum left for the NFL. Kirk Ferentz has talked about that switch going really well. Ferentz is the Iowa head coach. He could squat 700 pounds, 425-pound bench. It shows. His run game power is awesome. He would need to put on some weight at the NFL level. Very doable. We've seen players successfully recomposition with Ben Herbert. I have No doubt about that. He's excellent against power rushers. He wins with leverage, strong anchor. His speed really opens up the playbook because he can get to the second level to block for those short passes so well. He often, he helps a guard with their block, and then he blocks a linebacker before the running back is even at the line of scrimmage. So this is a really fast on his feet guy. He is so dangerous on down blocks. So dangerous. He just moves these guys. There's a play versus Penn State where he down blocks one guy and he blocks the DB at the next level with one arm, and it is awesome. A lot of pancakes in his tape. He plays through the whistle, knocks guys over, lays on top of them. He clearly is someone who just loves hitting guys hard. He made USC look really weak up front on those run plays, and we see now how good of a team USC is. He's a little bit more raw technically. He struggles a bit against speed rushers because of that. Some of the rips and swims he can have a hard time with. Even so, he has still allowed very few pressures this year. He's good at creating rushing lanes in tight spaces, looks good in the run zone, in the red zone especially. It's not clear to me where this guy is going to go. I have yet to find a real consensus for him, but this is a really exciting player. This is someone I think you could look at. Same with Poncho as a Harbaugh guy. Very tough, very physical, very much loves to go out there and play hard, which you love to see. I would absolutely love to see him in a Chargers uniform. All right, moving on. Parker Brailsford at Alabama. So number 72, 6'2", 290, bit of a smaller prospect. He played for 2 years at Washington. He followed Kalen DeBoer to Alabama in 2024. He was named a captain his senior year. He played right guard sometimes at Washington, and he looked good. So he brings that versatility in the interior. He had a very dominant performance against Georgia. The whole line looked awesome, and he led that charge. He allowed 1 sack and 2 quarterback hits in his entire career as of October 25th. I haven't looked at the stats again from that, but I was impressed with his film since that. That obviously looks amazing. Elite speed, elite athleticism, explosive first step, great football IQ. He reads the defense pre-snap well, picks up stunts. Clearly his best strength is his intelligence, which is a great thing for that transition from the college level to the NFL level. He is smaller. He has shorter arms. That can be a weakness. He still is powerful for his size. He benches over 500, squats 675. He would likely add some weight to deal with those bigger power rushers, bigger nose tackles in the NFL. But there would be that question of, is he still going to have what makes him great, which is his explosiveness? And in all likelihood, I think he will. I think that's a transition most athletes are able to make. He already added weight going into this year, and he still looks good. So I believe in Ben Herbert to make that happen if the Chargers get that opportunity. I think he'll probably be picked in rounds 4 or 5. Nothing is certain right now. I don't think I would want him before round 4 at his size. We have a huge offensive line, and I don't know that's something that the Chargers would want to compromise, but honestly, I don't think any team should pick him before round 4. Didn't love his performance against Oklahoma. They have an NFL caliber defensive tackle who is just awesome, and he really could not hold his anchor against a bigger body, so that's the biggest concern about him. I've seen grades for him as high as toward the end of the second round. I think that's an overdraft. There's still time left. We still have more tape to look at on him, and there will be opportunities, but I think he would be maybe more of a developmental pick that would play behind a veteran next year. So those are my top 5 center prospects. I am going to do one honorable mention for a rising player, Bryce Foster out of Kansas. He's 6'5", 310. He has excellent size and strength, despite limited arm length. He won a state title in shot put in Texas when he was in high school. So he has serious punching power. There are times his punches knock guys back, and it's like, okay, now that player is working on a timetable disadvantage. They're not going to be able to do anything because that's just how strong he is in his upper body. He's very reliable when he played at Texas A&M against tough SEC defensive tackles. He left A&M for Kansas in the 2024 season, and he had a sizable impact on the performance of that offensive line in the interior. His teammates voted him a captain for 2025. He talked about how much that meant to him, how important being a leader is to him. He has great movement, great awareness on pulls, a lot of lead blocking opportunities, definitely more attentive to what's going on around him than all of his teammates. Like, he is noticeably more aware of what the defense is doing than his teammates. Kansas often has him chip and then pull ahead of a short pass in the middle of the field to a lot of success. So they're able to expand their playbook because of him. The technique is kind of raw in pass protection. His hands are often too high on the pads, which I don't love. At this stage in his career, that really could be tightened up. Hasn't improved over the years. I think that limits his ability to be drafted higher than the 5th or 6th round, just because, at this point, his technique should be better. This is a guy who plays hard. He blocks through the whistle. He can struggle against a quicker get off of some 3 technique rushers and some of those more powerful nose tackles. But he can usually redirect, if not recover entirely, to at least save the play. Shows good intelligence, good focus, good resilience. He doesn't give up on plays. And because he's not proven to be a versatile interior piece, like I said, likely a day 3 pick, but he could develop into a starter. He has that high-end potential. He just is unlikely to be someone who could start his rookie year. A team could still get great value from a late-round pick on him. So he's someone to look out for as a 6th-round pick, 7th-round pick, UDFA. If no one picks him, I hope the Chargers sign him, because I like a lot of what I see, and I think there's a lot of tape of him in the SEC doing really good things against strong defensive tackles. So those are all of my center prospects. Let me know if there are any names that I should be looking at. I have not spent a lot of time looking at smaller schools. I'm able to spend a lot of time looking at Big Ten and SEC guys just because of my job, but let me know if there's some smaller school guy that you're thinking about, or if there's a team you're a fan of you want to know my thoughts on. I'll be doing a guard draft evaluation soon. I'm hoping sometime early next week. And other than that, I'm probably going to do a State of the Chargers video sometime soon. So let me know what you guys think. Who of this class would you guys put number 1? Is it Connor Lew? For me, I don't want to say Poncho is better than Connor Lew, but he is certainly more exciting, and I think if you can get him high in the 2nd round, maybe trade back from that 1st pick, I think that would be great value. But let me know what you guys think. Is Jake Slaughter really exciting for you? And I encourage you guys to watch these guys play this weekend and watch them play in the playoffs, where we get to learn the most about them. Please like and subscribe if you have enjoyed this content or it has been valuable to you in any way. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and I'll see you guys next time. My name is Cecilia. This has been the Chargers Check-In. Thanks for being here.